we good to go?
I think we're good to go. I see the red dot.
I think
John, do you see the red dot?
I see a red dot.
Welcome to the Broker Loaded Podcast, everybody. My name is Kurt Studley. That's Danny Grimes to my left, your right. And to my right, your left, is John Daigneault, home inspector.
You're a realtor.
I'm a realtor.
I'm a broker.
He's a broker.
I'm neither of those.
No. Hi, John. How are you?
I'm good.
Welcome to the podcast.
I was going to ask, are the song lyrics going to come up here, or?
Yeah, at some point there will be a sing-along.
Counting Crows is my go-to.
It's a new addition to our podcast. It's usually just about real estate, but today it will involve some karaoke.
Home
That's not true.
Karaoke edition.
We're talking home inspections today.
That's right.
And John, you'll be happy to know you're the second guest ever to appear on this program.
Yeah, it was a tough act to follow.
Right, Ken Hoyt is a tough
Yeah.
act to follow.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. He's a lawyer. So there's that.
I'm going to sue him.
Yeah, and the reason we chose John, because John, you've never been on an inspection, I think, with either one. Have you ever been?
I have not used John as an inspector.
And this is the first time we've met, but John's one of the inspectors who's very active on social media, and what I like, he seems to take pictures. They're not live, but I'll call them live during inspections. If he sees something, he'll snap a pic, and he's one of the ones that goes up on Instagram with sometimes a little comical notation.
Love it.
And on Facebook.
Yeah.
So he's a good guy to follow.
There's always good pictures to be had.
Right.
Yeah.
Some fun stuff along the way.
Never underestimate somebody's ability to screw up their house.
Yeah. John, how long have you been a home inspector?
About 12 years now.
Yeah. And what's the name of your company, by the way?
CanaSpec.
CanaSpec.
Yeah, like Canada.
Yeah.
Spec.
That's I see it on your shirt. He's got
I am working
shirts.
after this, so that's why.
Right.
I dress to.
He's got shirts for his business.
I
Dan.
know.
Yeah.
We have hats.
Yes, we do.
It fits my ear.
We're going to cover a bunch of items, topics related to home inspection today. Now, John, being the smart man that he is, prepared by coming up with a list of myths when it comes to home inspections and home inspectors.
Yeah, it's a good start.
Yeah, I like the idea because it gives us a little something to go on here. John, are you a licensed inspector?
I am not, Kurt. Thanks for asking.
Right?
No, there in Ontario, there's no such thing as licensed home inspectors.
What?
BC and Manitoba are the only provinces that have licensed home inspectors. Ontario was heading down that road in 2017,
Right.
with Bill 59, Putting Consumers First
Right.
Act, and then Doug Ford took over and kiboshed it.
Wow.
So we still don't have licensed home inspectors.
Okay, but we have to clarify that because the term license is widely used in our industry. So I'd like you we'll use the word certification.
Yeah, and that's the important thing.
That's
about
the
it.
important, yeah.
In lieu of licensing, how do you know if your inspector's any good, if it's qualified?
Right.
And so, so I am what's called a registered home inspector, and that is a level of credibility, if you will, or a title that is the highest level in both the Ontario Association of Home Inspectors and the Canadian Association of Home and Property Inspectors, and those are the two big associations that we're involved with. Typically.
So any home inspector who's have the experience and does the sort of things you do and the way you do it is a member of those groups?
No, so they work their way up. So if you want to become a member of those groups, you start out as a student member, then you become a candidate member, then an associate member, and then ultimately, so you have to do. You have to take a course with an accredited facility. Like Algonquin offers a home inspection course.
Okay.
And it's like 423 hours of class training. Yeah. And then you have to have, I believe, 200 paid home inspections. You can't just do them on your buddy's house before you reach that RHI level.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
And those are the initials we're looking for that are commonly used. I tell my clients.
RHI.
And we confirm. I always ask if you're having an RHI or is the RHI approved or certified before they do the inspection on them.
Right.
Yeah. That's not to say that an associate member couldn't do a good home inspection, because we all had to climb that ladder, right? But I mean, you could take a flashlight right now, go out and do a home inspection. There's nothing to say you can't. So that's why you want to make sure that you've got somebody that has seen a thing or two.
Right. Right, and that's just some due diligence on the part of realtors and homeowners.
That's right. Just like you might interview a listing on your house.
Right.
Yeah.
There's nothing. I get calls all the time, and I've had people have me on the phone for half an hour to find out what I know, what I've done, and
Right.
how qualified I am.
Right.
So I welcome that.
Yeah. It's important for people to, do a little investigation and
Sure.
make sure they know who they're hiring and that they're the right person for the job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, just like hiring realtors,
Yeah.
just like that.
The difference is, and I'm familiar with the courses that you have to take, and they're very extensive. My cousin did them, so approximately 440 hours.
Yeah. That's a lot of
And
hours.
That's a lot, many, many more hours than it would take somebody to get their real estate license.
Do you know how many days that is? Me neither. Anyway,
Yeah, actually, it's 20. Just
it?
under 20.
is it?
Yeah, it is.
Wow,
But that's
that's some good
24
math.
hours a day.
That's some
Yeah,
good
and
math.
that's just in class time too. It's
Right.
a lot of work behind the scenes.
Oh,
too.
yeah.
A lot
no.
of practical experience for home inspectors,
Yeah,
right? On the
yeah.
job sort of training.
12 years later, I'm still seeing stuff I've never seen before.
Yeah.
Right.
I saw yesterday. I saw a tar and gravel roof on a low slope house. Like the whole roof was tar and gravel. And it
Usually
was
on a flat
Fly,
roof.
tar and gravel?
Tar and gravel. Yeah, it was
Usually
like
on a flat roof, right?
Usually, I mean, well, even a flat roof will have some slope, but this is like it's called a 312 pitch.
Yeah.
Or it might have been a 212, but the whole bungalow was tar and gravel. It was weird.
Was it well, I used
No,
to
it was
roof
tar and gravel, so it wasn't.
So it wasn't the
it wasn't a
membrane.
roll roofing or anything.
an old 5-ply roof. Holy jeez.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Let's move on to actual home inspections. So that's something I don't know about you, but I always recommend the idea of hiring a home inspector to clients. I mean, it's obviously their choice, but it is a great option. And what I tell people, John, is that, for homeowners, even if you don't know the ins and outs of your house or don't understand it to a certain degree, it's a little bit of peace of mind having someone who knows to go through the home you're buying, or even if you're selling,
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
make sure everything's on the up and up, and there are things that you can tell people that aren't really, visible to the naked eye, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we have, other than our own experience of seeing something and going, that might not be right. But we also have tools. I mean, we have thermal cameras, moisture meters, all kinds of things that aid us to drawing a conclusion on something or a suspicion on something.
Yeah.
Do most inspectors carry the moisture meter now? Because there
yeah.
was a time that
Yeah.
you didn't want to carry the moisture meter.
Oh, I can't imagine anybody's not carrying one now.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an important tool.
Absolutely. It is my go-to. It's number 2 after my flashlight.
Yeah, because you cannot really see behind walls.
That's
But
right.
This, to a
That's
degree,
right.
helps you with that problem,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? What does just for people who don't know, what does that do? What does that tool do?
Moisture meter?
Yeah,
Yeah.
So it measures the moisture content in a material.
Right.
So there's direct contact. There's pins that can be used, or a flat piece on the moisture meter, which can do non-invasive measurements on the surface.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So it'll give you an accurate reading through a finished basement wall.
So it's on the
An
material.
indication, maybe?
Yeah, it's on the material that it's up against. So
Gotcha.
If you talk about a finished basement, it's not going to measure moisture at the foundation wall, but if the foundation wall has a crack and it's allowing moisture, that moisture is eventually going to find itself to the drywall,
back
the
of the
trim, and things
drywall.
like that.
Yeah.
Moisture is the enemy.
Moisture is the enemy.
Especially
Yeah.
along the baseboards, I would imagine,
Yep,
for
yeah,
sure.
so-
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm just looking at my own here. So.
Yeah.
What about here's another myth that John came up with: new homes don't need home inspections.
Yeah, I get that question a lot. So people say, it's a new home. Do I need to have it inspected? And I say, well, was it made by humans? to err human.
That's good.
I did one time. It was actually for a 2-year Tarion warranty. So Tarion, in case anybody doesn't know, is the sort of the warranty program for new homes.
Right.
And there's different milestones: 30-day, 1 year, 2 year, 7 year. And I was doing a 2-year inspection, and they had never had an inspection done on their new house because
Right.
they figured, what could go wrong? I went up in the attic. There was absolutely no insulation. They just
None.
forgot. They just missed it.
Wow.
Yeah. and they were wondering why their heating bills were so high, but never really wondered about it.
In a brand new home, forgot to put the insulation in the ceiling.
Yeah. So
how did that get through the?
Well, because city inspectors, this is building code officials,
Right?
Yes.
They don't necessarily inspect every house, right? They might be a row of 6 or 8, and they might do number 1 and number 5 and assume everything else in between is done right. Because they don't have the manpower to do every corner of every house.
Gotcha.
Well, I have a personal experience. The first home that we bought, I think I was discussing it with you when we were first chatting. We used to show up on site to check, and they were drywalling the ceiling in my garage that had one of the bedrooms above the garage, as many of the new homes do.
Yeah.
And I noticed all the ductwork up against the floor, up against the wall, and I looked up, and of course it hadn't been installed. And I asked the drywaller, I said, well, you can't drywall because the heating ducts haven't been installed for that front bedroom. And his answer was, I'm getting paid to drywall this ceiling today. That's not my problem. So I called the site foreman. It was resolved, but he would have drywalled over, and I would have had a very cold,
no insulation in there.
You know.
Yeah.
So you do have to watch for things like that. And
so like your circumstance, had it been finished and you had me in for an inspection after you've taken possession or whatever, one of the things I do is I go around and check the airflow through all the ducts, and that would have been revealed as a result of that. I use a anemometer, fancy name for a wind gauge.
Oh, the old anemometer. Do you, if I'm a new home buyer, and there's inspections that take place along the way, I would guess, but for a new homeowner to bring in their own independent inspector, is that a good idea?
Absolutely, because like I say, city code officials aren't doing every house anyway. The builder is going to give you what's called a PDI, a pre-delivery inspection,
right?
Which really is mostly a walkthrough where you're just most people are looking at finishes and things like that.
They're eyeballing stuff, yeah.
Yeah, so they're not really looking at the operation of a furnace or things like that. They're not going in the attic, so a PDI is not going to reveal everything,
right?
It's mostly about fit and finish.
So, John, what's the attitude toward the new home builders have these days with having an inspector kind of walk through every 30 days to have a look? Because they used to keep their doors open at one time.
Yeah,
some of them still
build. Yeah,
some of them still do, but most of them have them locked up.
Yeah, typically, I have some. Home buyers have had me come in during the PDI, but I haven't found that very effective because sometimes I'm going in there and they're still finishing the house.
Right.
So the report is like huge. I've walked in and they're still doing the backsplash, in the kitchen, and it was like doing or installing the faucet. Another guy was installing faucets in the bathroom. And so I just say, I think the better use of my time or any inspector's time, is the 3-week mark after possession, because that gives you time to find the things that you notice, because I'm not really there to know. It's like, oh, this paint doesn't quite look right.
Right.
You're going to see all that. You're going to put your little blue duct tape or your masking tape on there to note it. You're going to put it in your 30-day claim to the builder. I'm there to see the bigger things.
Right.
Yeah, I'm referring to from the time the building is what they refer to as watertight. So the roof is on, soffits are in, windows are installed. Furnace might not be installed at that point. So you're probably about 120 days out from a PDI or a pre-home inspection.
Okay, yeah.
What's their attitude, or how many of your clients want you to go in from the framing stage?
I rarely get that request.
I'll tell you, you should get more of them, because that's where you see a lot of the problems before they're covered up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so like I say, I like to go in at the 3-week mark.
Yep.
So that gives everybody time, or gives the homeowner time to compile their list of things they found in their first 3 weeks, and then everything I found at that point, and get it in for their 30-day claim. Because that's a big one. Because, that's your feedback to the builder.
Yeah, because again, humans are building these things, so there's bound to be some issues, be they minor or major, right?
Yeah.
Let's move on, since we're on that topic. You're not inspecting building codes, right? One of the myths that inspectors are out to find things wrong with the building code, but that's not what you're doing.
No, I mean, we are not building code officials. We have no authority to force anybody to do anything.
Right.
We are there just to give an opinion.
Right.
So we are not, we know a lot of codes.
Sure.
We took building code courses.
Right.
But codes change all the time.
Right.
And it's impossible to keep up with every code change that comes along. So, we're just not there for code inspections.
Okay. One of the bigger topics, and it comes up with older homes, and one of the myths that we're going to talk about today. Inspectors can tell you if there's asbestos or mold in your house. So we were talking earlier, just before the podcast, about like in the Alta Vista area and older parts of the city, there are lots of homes that may or may not contain asbestos, depending on when they were built and how they were built and so on and so forth. But it still exists out there, right?
Oh, sure. Older homes, we were talking earlier about vermiculite insulation, a type of insulation that could be in an attic.
And it's fun to say, vermiculite.
Vermiculite,
right?
Yeah. So in those cases,
it is.
Yes.
Yeah. Without getting too long into the story, so some of this insulation was mined in Libby, Montana, and that particular mine was contaminated with asbestos. Vermiculite is a great insulation,
right?
But this particular source was contaminated,
and it was a big source.
It was a big source. Yeah, I would say probably, at least 50%, maybe up to even 80% of vermiculite that we have that we used in Canada came from that mine.
Wow.
But by looking at vermiculite, you can't tell whether or not it's the one that came from Libby, unless there's, an old bag of it in there and that has a name on it. Zonalite, I think, is the big one.
Actually,
Zonalite.
You used to see the odd bag up in the attic.
We can't know by looking at it whether or not it is asbestos containing. It'd have to be tested in a lab, and they take a sample and they hold it and look at it under a microscope, and they're looking for those asbestos fragments.
So as a home inspector, it's obviously something you're looking for, signs that there might be asbestos, but can you tell if there is or isn't?
No, you can't. You can't look at any material and tell you whether or not it's a ACM, asbestos-containing material.
Right.
In the same way that we can't see behind walls.
Right.
So if you've got a foundation leak and moisture, we can't see if there's mold on the other side of the wall. What we can do is I'm looking for circumstances where there is an opportunity for the growth of.
Right.
Sorry, I'm not. Insurance companies don't like to say mold. Microbial growth.
Ooh,
yeah.
Mold.
See, well, if it walks like
looks
like a duck and walks like a duck, I'm going to probably tell you it's a duck. But
you don't want the MG.
Yeah. No.
Microbial growth.
Yeah.
No, sir.
So
no.
I'll know it when I see it, and I'm going to say something. I'm not just going to gloss over it.
What happens when you do find it, or what you suspect would be that sort of material?
Are we talking asbestos or mold?
Yeah. Either or.
Yeah. Well, asbestos, if it was vermiculite, I would say, have a remediation company or environmental company come in, take samples, and find out whether or not you're dealing with an asbestos-containing material.
Yeah, right.
It's pretty easy to do, though, if you've discovered it after you bought the home. Though you wouldn't want to discover it after, but
yeah.
Same basic principle for mold?
It depends. It depends on the extent. If you've got a little patch of mold around a window or something, maybe you left a window open during a rainstorm, it got wet and left too long, and mold starting to develop. I forget the exact. I believe it's like 10 square feet or something. They consider that to be something that you can deal with yourself.
Right.
Soap and water. Never use bleach. Clean it up. But if it was like your whole basement is like riddled with mold or something like that, or an attic roof sheathing is covered in mold, then you'd want to leave that to the professionals.
Did you say use bleach or never use?
Bleach. The bleach is probably harder on your lungs than the mold would be.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you're
soap
putting
and
it
water.
on it. Yeah.
Soap and water.
Soap and water.
That's it. So it could be surface mold, what we commonly see here and there, right?
Yeah.
You could have some for no apparent reason, like you say, a small crack in a window or something.
Absolutely.
But there are far-reaching issues that need to be checked out.
Yeah. Like I say, if it's a whole basement that's riddled with it, then that's professional remediation time.
All right, number 5 is one of my favorites on the list of the myths associated with home inspectors and home inspections. So number 5 says inspectors can tell you how long things will last and what it will cost to replace them.
Yeah,
I don't think that's true.
I
I think that's a myth.
It is.
I think it's a myth.
But we get the question all the time. It's like, how long have I got left on this roof? Well, the only way, the thing that decides how long a roof is going to last is Mother Nature.
Yeah.
Southern-facing exposures that are getting that sun predominantly throughout the day are going to wear out faster.
And some sides of houses get more sun than others, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Trees, shielding
Right.
things like that. Perfect example, I'm in a 1969 house. My kitchen is at the front of the house, and it has this big bay window, and it faces north, is under an overhang behind a tree.
Right.
The thermal seals in the window are still good, because it's never seen the sun.
Right.
Yeah.
So the sun decides how long things are going to last. So I can look at a roof and tell you it's getting there. Probably should have it looked at within a couple of years, or it's like it was done 3 years ago kind of thing.
Yeah.
You need to do it now sooner than later.
If somebody asks how much,
to give.
if somebody asks how much a roof, like a
Right.
standard shingle roof, maybe shadow shingles,
Well,
you got a price per square or
let me
range?
kind of group that in with something, because I get the question a lot. Is like, the furnace is 25 years old.
Right.
That's probably going to have to be replaced
Yeah.
at some point soon. What's it going to cost me for a furnace and AC? And it's really hard for us to give a price on somebody else's work.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. If I am going to give any kind of estimate, it's usually going to be a pretty wide ballpark. So I might look at a roof and say, it'll cost you $6 to $12,000. But that's because we can't know exactly what something's going to cost. And insurance companies really don't want us giving estimates, because there's the liability of, you said it was going to be $5,000, it was 12. I'm suing you for the difference.
Yeah, and it's actually not what you do. It's
No,
not part of your business.
I'm not the roofer.
Right.
Get the price right from the roofer.
Doesn't take long to get a roofer to drive by
No.
to and get a price off it. And the prices with roofers, good roofers, still varies greatly.
Oh, sure. It depends on the pitch of the roof, how complex it is, what kind of shingle you're installing.
Yeah.
Prices can, and same with furnaces. You can buy sort of the entry level furnace, and you might pay $5,000, or you can get the Cadillac of furnaces and pay 10. So it does vary greatly.
The Cadillac of furnaces.
Cadillac.
That's what I want. The Cadillac. All right. Now, when you do a home inspection, when you're completed and you go through the process with the homeowner, are you providing a pass or failing grade on the home?
No, because
that's another myth, by the way.
Yeah, that's another myth. Yeah,
just in case.
Yeah, all homes are going to have issues. I don't care if it was built 5 minutes ago or 50 years ago.
You'll find
all
something.
homes are going to have something.
Yeah.
So there really is no pass or fail. I can tell you, I like to blow it down or boil it down to: is it gonna blow up, fall down, or float away? And in my opinion, once you can, check those off as being okay, the rest is pretty much home maintenance. So
yeah.
So
that's the other thing I like
fail.
about. I've followed many a home inspector around, and it gives the homeowner some idea of the things they should be doing. Right?
Absolutely.
They may not be major problems, but if your window well isn't set up properly, you'll note that if there's something wrong with a window well, and it's something the homeowner can do, not necessarily a major item, but something that the homeowner can do to maintain their property.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, maintenance. First thing I do when I have a client in a house is I tell them, come on downstairs. I'm going to give you everything you need to know about your house in 2 minutes, and it usually takes about 10 minutes. But and so I show them where the water shutoffs are, how the furnace filter is, how often to change, if you've got a heat recovery ventilator, the filter. So all that kind of stuff we go through, because I don't want people to be intimidated by the fact that they're now homeowners.
Right.
Because you walk into a utility room, it can be pretty daunting.
Yes.
And so I want to, when I'm looking at a furnace, I tell them, what is a furnace? You're looking at this thing and it's like, it looks very complicated. It's like you're looking under the hood of a car.
Yeah.
But really it's just a blow dryer and a barbecue.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Good point.
And then it's like, oh yeah, okay, now I get it. And I don't return air, supplier.
Yeah.
Boil it down to terms that the common layman can understand.
Right.
And I think
and it helps them to maintain their home in the long run.
That's right.
First thing I always wanted to know is where's the water shut off.
Yep.
Like, if there was a leak, I just wanted to run into the basement and shut it off.
That's
Or a
the
gas,
first thing I should know.
gas shut off. You want to know where that is, right?
Yeah.
As a homeowner, your outside taps.
Actually, on closing of this house, we walked in and I smelled gas right away. And I walked out and I called the gas company and they came out right away
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
shut it
They're
off.
pretty quick on.
Yeah, there was
quick
a
on
bit of
those things.
vandalism going on with the previous owner,
Yeah.
as we discovered.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, and those are things you want to monitor, obviously.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Only hire inspectors who come from trades. Another one of John's myths.
Yeah, it's a gripe. It's a gripe. So the only people that think that home inspectors should come from trades are home inspectors who come from trades.
Right.
Certainly. And now, obviously, you can see I'm being defensive here because I didn't come from trades, but I did renovations and things like that, and that got me interested in building sciences.
Right.
I won't go down that road, but if a guy is a plumber and he wants to be a home inspector, he's not going to know any more about electrical than I am.
No.
And vice versa.
Right.
Or, a framer is not going to know anything about plumbing.
No.
Well, maybe not nothing, but, it really, everything that we know comes mostly from experience. Education is great, but experience is, you can learn how to drive, but until you've been driving for a long time.
Right.
There's nothing more expensive than experience. As they say.
That's true too.
And,
Yeah.
most of the home inspectors I know have done some level of work in their own properties, and
Yeah. Yeah.
they just, like you say, learn from experience, learn from doing.
You have to have a passion for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Definitely.
what good is a real estate agent if you're not really interested in taking care of your clients? So
Right? That makes no sense. We're interested in taking care of our clients. That's what we do.
There's a few of the others, though,
Yeah.
kicking around like
there
in
is.
every profession.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's bad inspectors out there too.
I'm sure there are.
And that's
I'm
why,
sure there
and
are.
those are the ones that make the news. And
Do you have
and
any
make
names,
us
John,
look
for
bad.
us?
Well, as a matter of fact,
Any names you want to spit out?
There's a couple I'd like to mention right now. As a matter of fact.
Shout out to
I got a
actually
few.
home inspections. I don't even know if that's even a business in Ottawa. I shouldn't say any
I
names.
got a few of those who've showed up with a legal pad and taken some notes.
Yeah. No question about it. Happens all the time.
100%.
Now, this one should be interesting.
Yeah.
Are real estate agents and people involved in real estate in cahoots with home inspectors? Do we work together to make sure everything appears to go smoothly?
Oh, well, I
No.
mean, certainly there are.
I can speak to that if you're too shy, but
well,
let's
no, you
hear
go
your
ahead.
let's hear your answer first.
All right.
I think I still go by the rule that I learned when I got in the business 40 years ago, and it's still a RICO recommendation, or RIA, or any manager you're with. Always, if you're asked to hand out names, hand out 3 or 4.
Sure.
Yeah.
And based on my experience, I can easily name 3 or 4 good certified RHIs that have they've been in the business. None of them that I know have been in the business any less than 10 years. I think that still happens where somebody says, do you have a home inspector? And they give them one name, and that is used by the client. And
Well, sometimes clients will point blank ask you.
Oh, absolutely.
well, most do.
Just give me one name. Who would you use?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They'll ask for lawyers, and I give 3 names of lawyers
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, but I mean, ultimately, and I'll admit, probably 75% of my work comes from agent referrals.
Yeah, for sure.
Certainly, I'm appreciative of that.
But you're not in the cahoots.
The name on the report is the person I'm working for.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's happened that there are agents who want a clean report because they want the deal to go through.
Sure.
Because stuff that I find is going to perhaps muddy the waters of a deal.
It might impact the situation, right?
And I'm sure there, I found stuff that has maybe annoyed an agent, and I haven't got a call back from them. So, but that's okay. There's I'd rather work with agents that have that credibility and ethic.
Yeah. So in the end, for us, it's it's purely a recommendation.
Yeah.
Like Danny says, you give your client a few names, and maybe a little background on each one. I never refer anyone I haven't met or I don't know or I haven't worked with. I mean, how could you do that? Just to hand out a few names. But I tend to, go toward people I've worked with and I trust and give them those names, right? But I'm not calling John and going, hey, John, I got a good gig for you. Just let me line it up.
No,
It's
but
not-
there are, it's fair to say there are some realtors who are just too close to the inspectors that they use. There are some soft
for sure.
inspectors, as there are
Yeah.
soft negotiating realtors, bad lawyers, bad doctors, on and on
sure.
and
Right.
on.
Right.
I had one agent wanting me to steer my report, to make it look worse than it is. Because they were trying to get a bigger reduction, and I refused to. And
See, that
told them-
agent,
told them
that
outright.
realtor should be reported.
Yeah, this was early on in my career, so I didn't.
So
really
you
know
got
how
to
to
play
handle
the,
that.
Yeah, at the
you
time,
got
yeah.
a stick handle around that.
Yeah.
That's not cool. That's just not cool for people to do.
No, I always ask if I'm representing the seller. I always ask the other agent, who's the home inspector, and I make sure that they're on the list. Is there two educational bodies? The one that we're more common is
so-
the RHI, but is there not a U.S. organized?
There's ASHI.
you guys have always.
INTERNACHI. There's a
That's
bunch
the
of them.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them, and they all have their ways of doing things, ways to do education and support home inspectors, and I don't really have an opinion on which is better or not. Like I say, I'm a member of the Ontario Association, which used to be the provincial leg of the Canadian Association of Home and Property Inspectors. They've kind of severed ties now, but I'm still part of both of them,
Right.
Because some things have sort of Ontario local considerations, and some things are more national interest. So I like to stay on top of both those things.
If somebody insists on using an inspector who's not a member of one of the organizations, I think that should be disclosed and noted right up front with the seller.
Like I say, because there's no licensing. I mean, the due diligence would be, asking the questions like how long you've been inspecting. What education have you taken?
Yeah.
Did you take the
Reviews, references,
Did you take
all that stuff.
the 1 week online course, or did you take one that was like 440 hours?
Right.
Yeah.
How many inspectors?
20 straight days.
I think a good question is this a part-time job for you or full-time?
Right.
Actually, it's funny.
So
My cousin who took, I think there were 10 courses, and he did well on all of them except one. And his last name is also Grimes, and he grew up, Grimes roofing was prevalent throughout the Ottawa area.
Right.
And grew up on a roof from the time he was maybe 13. He failed it.
yeah.
But then he challenged it because a couple of the systems were systems that they used. But he still had to rewrite. So they're not easy.
Yeah, no, you got to get.
You can't assume you know something.
On any one of those courses, I think you got to get 70%. Like 50 is not good enough. You got to be 70% or higher to pass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same
So
with
it's pretty
isn't it
Real
75 for
estate, real estate at 75.
75.
Okay.
Yeah.
Still 75. Yeah.
Yeah, 75. That's fair.
Yeah. I have a lawyer on standby just in case I have questions about that stuff. Okay, John. So I've hired you as my home inspector. I bought a 15-year-old home. You've gone through the inspection process, and there are some issues, right?
Right.
You give those to your client, the buyer.
Yeah.
If I'm a seller and I get a list from the buyer of things that are wrong with the house or need to be addressed. Am I responsible for fixing them all? That's another myth that you've hit on here.
Yeah, well, I mean, my job is to describe a house, find deficiencies, and report it back. What happens from that point is the conversation that you should have with your agent.
Yeah.
Because an agent is going to know, a good one, is going to know what fights to fight.
Yeah.
It's like,
And what ones to
this
leave.
smoke detector is expired. Well, no, we're not going to go back on them for a smoke detector, versus like, major
I want a
structural-
$5,000 reduction.
No, the classic's the doorbell.
Yeah.
I want a doorbell
broken
didn't
doorbell,
work.
yeah.
I want a
Yeah.
$2,500 price reduction.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a
The
doorbell didn't
complicated
work.
wiring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the point is, all these things can be negotiated. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Right, and it is important to pick your battles. There's no question about
Absolutely.
it. With the with the findings that you do have. I mean, if there are major issues, there are major issues, and something's got to be done. right? Somehow.
Absolutely.
So major issue. What would be the top 3 or 4 major? I would assume a foundation, obviously.
Yeah. So, I mean, major issues. I mean, obviously, structural is going
Yeah.
to be the biggest one because it has an impact on whether or not the house could fall down. Remember we talked about blow up, fall down, float away.
Yeah, I
That's
hate
right.
that.
You know, and the next thing, of course, is with water penetration, the
Right.
float away part.
Right.
But there's other things that could be considered major. And not major, because I see on there you have perceived major that aren't really. Windows that have lost thermal seals, that fogging that happens between the panes. Well, in all my reports, it's going to say, okay, thermal seals are gone in these windows. There might be 10 of them.
Right.
And it'll be listed as a major because of the cost, but not because of the impact. So
the R value is...
Well, windows aren't terribly efficient anyway.
No.
There is some loss of thermal efficiency when that happens, but more importantly to most people, just annoying to look through.
Right.
So my report's going to say, do what? Repair or replace. When? Discretionary, because it's really, it is expensive to replace windows, but it's not really hurting the house as much as it is your feelings.
Right.
Good point.
That
I
is
like
a good
that.
point.
Yeah.
Hurt
So
feelings.
you talk about other major issues. Well, again, it comes down to cost. You know, if I see a 25-year-old furnace and AC, then, you know, statistically those things are not going to have much life left, and, you know, you're going to need to budget.
Which are
5,
pointed
10
out in
grand
your
or whatever.
report, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What if I see, the one I see a lot or hear about a lot is there's a crack in the foundation on the floor.
Yeah. Well, floor slabs are not actually structural members to a house.
No.
They are there for our comfort alone.
Yes.
You think, well, there's a steel column right here and it's on the floor. No, it's actually sitting on a footing underneath the floor. So floor slab cracks are typically nothing to be worried about, with a couple of exceptions. But generally, that's
and every foundation's got to have them, right?
Yeah. Concrete as it cures will crack. That's just the nature of concrete. I always give the analogy, it's like when you take a cake out of the oven and as it cools, you get cracks on the cake. Well,
That's right.
Concrete is hot when it's poured, and
so is it shrinking or?
Yeah, it can be shrinking. It could be settling,
expanding, right? Does it expand after?
I don't think it expands. I'm not a mason, but no, it's usually contraction. From what I understand. So.
I'm just thinking about cake now for some reason.
Yeah, now everybody's
Cake
hungry.
is good, eh?
It's very good.
Cake or pie?
I'll eat it without
Cake
ice.
or pie?
Pie.
Yeah, I'm cheesecake guy.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I'm pie.
I'm pie.
Yeah, definitely pie.
But
I'm
other
a-
than cheesecake, I would take pie.
I'm an
over
apple
cake.
pie.
Right.
Yeah.
So bottom line is when you come across issues, the seller's really not on the hook to fix
No.
everything. But
No.
when you get down to your inspection report, and I'm sure after the fact, once you deliver that report, you're open to discussion with the homeowner to explain anything they might have
No,
questions.
the door's closed. No, of course you can call me anytime. Text me.
Yeah.
No, that's it.
Oh, I tell people, if you see anything, you've got my number. Send me a picture or something. Send me a text with a picture or something,
Yeah.
and ask me if it's a concern.
Right.
And I'll give you an opinion. If I have to go out there, I will. But oftentimes, I can just respond to your message and go, yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Or yes, worry about it.
The last thing on your list of myths is an inspection is a guarantee.
Yeah.
It's not a guarantee.
There's
No.
you have to keep into consideration the scope of what we're doing. So we've got a few hours to look over a house's entire history. There could be people's furniture, storage in the way, finished walls. There's only so much we can do with the time we have. I mean, if I had a week, I could probably almost guarantee that I'm going to find absolutely everything there is.
Right.
Yeah.
Our job is to minimize the exposure that a home buyer is going to have. We're after the big things. If we just that paint really doesn't look the same color. They've touched it up, and is that going to be in your report? No, I'm not going to put that in my report.
No, this
I'm
got
there for
nothing
the
to
big
do.
stuff.
Yeah, it's got nothing to do with your home inspection. What paint matches what?
Yeah, and there's seasonal things too. Like you can have perhaps a roof that is leaking in the summer, but not the winter.
Right.
Granted, I'll probably see when I'm in the attic, I'll see signs of past moisture activity, kind of things like that. But just depending on the time of
I
year.
wonder what John would have said about that basement window we had a peek at last week.
Oh,
That was repaired. First window I've ever seen repaired like that.
there was a window that had several cracks in it. A basement egress window.
Yeah.
Yep.
several cracks in it, and they were fixed with
They waterproofed it with clear
silicone.
tub and tile silicone
Like
caulking.
in the cracks?
In the cracks.
Like, but there was a nice overlap on it. There was
Okay.
about an inch wide,
Okay.
and I have a
very
picture of
pretty.
So
it.
they probably use a nice putty knife
Looked
too.
like
eh?
the
Yeah,
start of
yeah,
a
it would have been a
stained
1-inch
glass
blade
project.
that they used,
Yeah.
and we couldn't open it.
It looked like the start of a stained glass project.
Oh, nice.
It did. That's a good
Not the
description.
finish. Not
no,
the finish.
No. The sad
start.
part about it is they wouldn't repair it, and a realtor owned the house. And he
Oh.
said it was fixed and didn't leak.
Yeah, I'm sure that thermal seal was in good
Yeah.
shape.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Oh.
Anyway.
Yeah. That's what he said. It's
John-
been fixed.
What about, are there any areas that are known to have issues? I'll give you an example of one
Yeah.
because it leads to my other question.
Sure.
Areas of Ottawa, you mean?
Yeah.
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 So Munster Hamlet
Okay.
is known to have aluminum wiring in most of the homes out there.
Yep.
Pineview's another area,
Yeah.
aluminum wiring.
Yeah.
So that would lead. So that's just an example of a couple areas that we know. Blackburn Hamlet, a lot of aluminum wiring.
Mm-hmm.
I just had one and just sold one with aluminum wiring. We were able to provide the ESA certificate from 2013. That's
Okay.
the Electrical Safety Authority.
Yep.
And it had all the entire house had been pigtailed.
Yeah.
Is aluminum wiring still a concern if the entire house has been pigtailed with copper?
Not in my opinion.
And not in any opinion of anybody I've ever asked.
Yeah, because pigtailing and just to give the quick and dirty on that.
what's
so
that
we
mean?
have
a
aluminum
bit
wiring
dirty.
instead of copper wiring,
Right.
Going from the panel to a device. The device could be an outlet or a light switch or something like that. And that's perfectly fine when it was done at the time because that device is rated for aluminum. What happens is people go, I'm tired of looking at that. I want new Decorus switches and things like that. So they go to Home Depot and they pick up some switches, put them in themselves. But they don't realize that on the back of that, there's a little circle on that that'll probably say CU with a circle around it, meaning copper's good, and then AL with a slash through it, meaning not rated for aluminum.
Right.
So in that case, when they're and really pretty much anything you buy now is going to be rated copper only.
Yeah, for sure.
So what they then do is you have an electrician in who takes the aluminum lead, attaches a copper pigtail to the end of it, and brings that copper wire into the device, and then that's perfectly fine. And usually insurance companies are okay with that solution,
Right.
Yeah.
rather than rewiring the whole house.
Yeah, no. I've never had pigtailing.
No, but it happens a fair amount. right?
Prevalent.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, and it's not really about the areas of town as it is the time. So homes that were built 70s mostly
early
are the ones
70s.
that are gonna. When copper got really expensive, builders started using aluminum, and then ran into problems with them. Ultimately, with typically the end device.
I was telling Kurt, this home that I went into, I've had an electrician go in and pigtail a home for a client, but I've never actually seen what they do or the job's done. This was the first time. I was there an hour before the open house, so I opened up a couple of the receptacles to take a look. It's quite a detailed job. Like, it's not just a little 1-inch piece of copper that they're wrapping around that piece of aluminum.
No, so usually it's done
Yeah.
right in the box,
Yeah.
and it has to have the proper moret.
Yep.
A little plastic
Yeah.
hat that when you join two wires together.
Right.
And that moret has to be rated for copper aluminum. So, there's definitely a right way and a wrong way. I've seen people do their own pigtailing, and they got the general idea right. Oh, I need to put copper onto this aluminum.
Right.
But then they use a moret that's not rated for those junctions.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, you definitely have to know what you're doing. And
Yeah.
We've got a few minutes left, and I want to just touch on some fun things that you've come across in your career. Interesting moments during a home inspection. Anything pop into your head when I bring that up?
Well, there's always the fun of like when you're inspecting like student housing or something and walk into a bedroom and people are in bed. That's always an awkward moment.
That's happened to me.
That's a
yeah.
full inspection.
Yeah,
Hey, maybe more than you want to see.
I'll come back. Yeah, exactly. Attics. I found a couple of porn collections in attics.
Yeah.
a rifle in another attic. So,
Right.
I think my BB gun is still in my attic under the insulation on Billings Avenue.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. I forgot to take it when I left the house. Yeah.
You should
I'm sure it's
go
there.
back. You should go back.
If it's ever for sale and vacant, I will go into the attic.
I think you should knock on the door.
Tell them there's a rifle up in their attic?
No, I would say there's a BB gun.
Well, that wouldn't be.
Don't start with a rifle.
Yeah, well, it's a rifle.
What other things, interesting things have you found? Obviously, there's some houses you walk into that weren't properly done, properly built, properly renovated, and you must be shaking your head a lot here.
Or just ones that are just so far gone. Like in 12 years, I've only stopped an inspection 3 times in the middle of it because it was just like with a clear conscience, I can't carry on with this and
it was
not
that bad?
have you know how bad it is.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like one house, it was a grocery store, or like a corner store owner, and he was going to be buying this house that came up for sale across the street, and he was going to, he had family coming in from overseas, and he was going to have them live there, and then he was going to tear down and rebuild it. But I just told him, I don't want any of your family living in this house. It was just that bad.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's rare because I always say, one of the things I like to say is anything can be fixed with the right amount of time, money, and enthusiasm.
Right.
Yeah.
And really that applies to just about every circumstance. But I mean, if I'm concerned about your actual ability to be safely living here, then yeah, that's when it's...
That would fall under major, I bet.
Let's move on.
Hey, that would fall under major
That
on the
was
report.
major. I remember
major.
I remember one where they had a mason chimney, so right down to the basement.
Okay.
And they hadn't used it, and in fact it had been closed. They hadn't used it in 20 or 30 years.
Right.
So all of the brickwork, of course, runs right through the attic, right down to the bottom. To there. But they didn't want to remove the chimney because aesthetically it looked nice from the exterior. So I remember the inspector, Sean, said, you gotta have a look at this. And I went up into the attic, and the brick had all been removed right down, but they had 2x4s bracing underneath this floating piece of the chimney in the attic. How many pounds would that be?
Oh,
God, I mean,
thousands.
Yeah. And it was forcing. Sean couldn't figure out why there was cracking in the ceiling below. Of course, it was the weight, and they were holding it up with 2x4s. It was ridiculous. Very dangerous. Super dangerous.
Structural lumber.
Yeah.
Probably not a good plan when you're dealing with brick.
No.
Probably.
Listen, you're also, I noticed you're a wet inspector as well.
I am.
What does that mean?
Now, I always screw up the acronym, and I should know this being a
I
wet
always
inspector. Wood Energy Technology Transfer, I think.
Yes.
So basically, that is the certification that I have for inspecting wood-burning appliances. So
Right.
pellet stoves, masonry fireplaces, factory-built fireplaces, that kind of thing.
It comes in handy to have that designation as well as home inspection, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
The one I'm doing later today is a home inspection and a wet inspection.
You're doing both at the same time?
Back to back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different
While you're there,
process,
right?
different focus, obviously. So,
Yeah. So that's one thing people could look for if they're in fact buying a home or want a home inspected that has a wood burning device such as a fireplace.
Well, I think insurance companies require it.
Yeah, I usually tell people check with your insurance company to see whether they require
but
one.
to hire a home inspector who also has the wet certificate can be important. Can be
it could be a one-stop shop. Save a return visit.
Right. Right.
So I got to ask, average cost of a home inspection. Let's just take a typical, maybe a 2-story, 20-year-old home, 2,200 square feet, like this house.
Yeah. Well,
typically, what are people looking at?
Yeah,
John?
and I'm not going to give you my price because inspectors' prices vary.
Yeah. I'd like a range.
But I'm going to say generally $500 to $600.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Well, that's fair.
Yeah, you get a lot of stuff wrong.
You get a lot.
You get a lot of stuff wrong in this house.
I just want to know where the
You need a
water
home
shut off
inspector.
is. It's the one thing that terrifies me.
I think it's important to point out, though, John, that this is an educational process for the homeowner to take advantage of.
Absolutely.
Right.
I always say it's as much an education as an investigation.
Sure. Sure.
That's good.
You know, it gives you insight into, you know, a lot of people say it's probably the most major purchase you're ever going to make in your life. It gives you some insight into what's going on with your house, any issues you might have to deal with. And the best part of it all, you can go back and look at this report, and it gives you ideas on how to maintain your home, on things you can be doing that are simple and effective, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm a strong believer in, somewhat self-serving to say this, but I'm a strong believer in home inspections because there are things that you're not going to see. And, you know, I don't care if people hire me or hire my other colleagues. You know,
Just get it done.
Just know what you're getting.
Yeah. And you always have that opportunity.
Minimize your exposure.
Clear, right?
Yep.
You have that opportunity. Certainly in the agreement of purchase and sale, it's in there. You put it in as a condition, what have you. You have that opportunity, and in 99% of the cases, to me, it's the right thing to do.
Absolutely. You know, back when, you know, the market was crazy, and, you know, we were going multiple offers and no conditions, and people were having a hard time even being able to get an inspection. Sometimes I do pre-offer inspections. So I'm going in during a showing and doing an inspection. And there was a couple of situations where it was like they were so glad that they got it done because, you know, in one case there was a house with a flat roof garage that had turned into a deck, and it was beautiful. You probably could have had 50 people on there.
Right.
But when I got into the garage and looked up, all the rafters there were toast.
So it wouldn't support 50 people.
Oh, 50 people were going to find themselves in the garage.
In the garage.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Not a bad idea either. I've seen this done before. If you're planning on selling your home, you want to identify any issues that might pop up at a home inspection later on, or issues you might want to address to get your home ready to sell. Getting a home inspection done,
pre-listing inspection.
Oh my God! Yeah. And if you know if you fix the things that need attention and so on, you're going to be fine if there's another home inspection. Plus, oftentimes people will provide information from their home pre-home inspection, pre-selling inspection to possible buyers, right? Potential buyers.
Yep. And I don't do a pre-listing inspection any differently than I do for a purchase or an inspection for a buyer.
Yeah.
It's a snapshot in time of the house as it stands today.
Yeah, and if you want to save yourself some stress down the road, if there are issues associated with your house that you want to fix ahead of time, it's a perfect opportunity to do so.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think a home inspection, though, eliminates the need for another independent one, but it gives you an idea going in.
Sure.
And it's a nice disclosure by the seller.
Yeah, like I say, it's a snapshot in time. I mean, if a house has been on the market for 6 months, well, that inspection may not necessarily be indicative of everything that is happening in that house on the day that you're looking to buy. So,
especially if it was done in June and we're now the following March, where you would get more water penetration maybe.
And I've seen copies of some pre-list inspections that I think are kind of sketchy.
Yeah.
Maybe somewhat self-serving or serving to the whims of the listing agent, perhaps.
Right.
So that's why I made that distinction. I'm not doing a pre-list inspection any differently than a buying inspection.
No. My God, how could that happen?
A self-serving home inspection purchased by the seller prior to putting it on the market.
No.
Yeah, there might be a few.
I'm sure
pages missing
in there.
Might be.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
That's good stuff, man. That's good.
Yeah.
Good information to know for both realtors and potential home buyers or home sellers. Considering what it costs you, and again, it's between $500 and $600 is usually the
money well spent.
Yeah, it's money well spent because you're educating yourself. You know what's going on with your home, and you know how to maintain it, especially for first-time buyers. I always recommend this because it gives you insight into what your home's all about, and it's important to know.
And it's it's a reference manual for your home.
Absolutely. When you consider it's equal to about the cost of a month's worth of utilities.
Makes sense.
It's not that big of an investment.
Just for the peace of mind alone, to me. Right.
I still write it in all my offers. If they don't want an inspection, they just cross it out.
Yeah.
I like having it in.
Yeah.
Now, I know there's a form dealing with that. If they say, I don't want an inspection, there's a new form that they can sign. But double down if I'm the realtor and have it in the agreement and have them sign that form.
Yeah.
I forget. If Pina was here, she could tell us the number of the form.
Well, she'd shout it out from her chair, right?
She would, like she did last
exactly.
week.
John, thanks so much. How do people get in touch with you, by the way?
Go to my website, www.canaspec.ca.
Yeah.
Or is there going to be a phone number here?
I was going to say, John, good for you.
Yeah.
That's usually my thing.
Okay.
You can get hold of them right here.
What are you guys looking at?
Ghost in the machine.
It's invisible.
Yeah.
I can't see it. But yes,
can't
John's
see
number
it.
is John's
Well,
number is on the
that's-
screen, but
right.
CanaSpec, CanaSpec.
I think there's a hyphen in
.ca.
there.
.ca.
Yeah,
.ca.
don'tgo.com. That's a guy in New Brunswick who also is an inspector, but we're not affiliated.
Oh, very good.
He just got the .com before I did.
It's good info.
Anything else you can think
I'm
of?
good. You good?
I'm good.
At the end of the day, money well spent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Money well spent.
Absolutely.
I would never recommend a buyer not having an inspection.
Nope.
Under any circumstance.
Nope. It just makes sense.
Even the insanity that we went through the last couple of years.
Yeah, there was a lot of non-inspections that took
Oh,
place.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And a
reflected
lot
in
of-
my numbers too, because obviously,
Yeah.
a lot of times we got cut out of the whole process.
Yeah.
And,
Oh, geez.
Yeah, there was a lot of deals without home inspections and
Yeah.
probably some
there's
regretful circumstances.
absolutely, a little bit of buyer's remorse there.
Well,
finding 60
if-
grand of stuff they have to
And
fix
if you ask
afterwards.
lawyers across Ontario now, they're dealing with a lot of litigation.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, no
I'm
doubt.
Sure.
No doubt.
Yeah.
After the
You
fact.
didn't disclose. You didn't ask.
Yeah.
Well,
Or the realtor told me not to put the clause in. I
Oh,
won't
right,
get the
right.
home without an inspection.
yeah.
That's a burial. Dig 6 feet.
Yeah.
This is the Broker Loaded
Yes,
podcast.
sir.
Thanks so much for joining us, John. Appreciate your time. I'm
Yep.
Kurt Studley. I'm a realtor.
I'm Dan Grimes. I'm a broker.
You can find the Broker Loaded podcast. Obviously, you've found it already if you're watching or listening to it, but it's on all the platforms that support your favorite podcast. It's on YouTube. It's on our Facebook page. And if you have any questions, we do have an email address.
We
right?
have an email address, the brokerloadedpodcast@gmail.com. And just another note, we've kind of got a regular schedule going here. And the video usually is up and running on Fridays, and the audio drops if you're up walking the dog at 4 o'clock in the morning on
Right.
Saturdays. It's
Right.
on all the audio platforms.
Yes, and as we all know, it's good to be regular. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a good time, everybody. See you soon.
See you next time, folks.